Hi guys, and welcome back to my You are having a wonderful day. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one, about OP, who is throwing his daughter out of his house because she keeps comparing her late mother to his current wife. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment. I have been very patient with my daughter, who is now 18. When she was about to turn 16, she had to deal with her mom and I divorcing. However, around 8 months later, before we could really get anywhere with the divorce, her mom died due to complications from ALS. She was 47. In the aftermath of it, I was very sympathetic to her distress. When she and her aunt decided to tell me that in the 7 months after her mother's death, she never once had a menstrual period, I took her to the doctors and let her skip school. After her mother's death, I fell deeply in love with my now wife, 25. We wed last year, right before she started law school. My daughter refused to warm up to her new stepmother and has told her to stay in her lane multiple times. My daughter is taking a gap year and working at a fast food joint. She claims nobody would get back to her when she applied for positions that gave her more hours. My wife says she never imagined she'd be going to a highly ranked law program without taking out thousands in loans. But now she says she isn't able to give her all to her work because the ostracism she felt from both my daughter as well as my mother's relatives were demoralizing her studies. She has also confessed to being uncomfortable with the modeling photos my daughter has of her mom around the house. I apologized over and over to my wife. My buddy, who's a partner at a law firm, told she was an excellent intern and that she had a real future ahead of her, and I was sad to see it affected. I confronted my daughter on her behavior, but she continues to refuse to even acknowledge that my wife is her stepmother. The last straw was when I got into our family iCloud and found recent messages between her and her friends. In it, one of her pictures sent her a picture of her mother when she was young and holding our then infant daughter, saying they missed her too. My daughter writes back about how her mother was top of her class in college and a literal model and was crushing it in her career before she had her. She said she didn't understand why I was with my new wife instead of feeling the loss of a sharp, beautiful woman like her mom. My friend wrote back, "I think some people might find your stepmom attractive in a way, but definitely nobody could compare to your mom when she was younger or even when she got older. She never aged in our eyes." My daughter loved the message and said thanks. I was furious that she basically co-signed calling my wife ugly. When confronted, my daughter started yelling back that all I ever done was make her feel like her mom was not worth being appreciated. She said, "My friend said your wife was plain compared to my mom, not me, but I don't think she's a superior person in any respect." After cooling off, I told her that she could stay here for a month longer, but she needed to get an apartment for herself because this living arrangement wasn't working out. She started crying and saying I was throwing her out to rot. Am I an a-hole? I realized that as a husband, I have to prioritize my wife's well-being, and my wife has confessed to feeling plain next to pictures of my first wife in her youth. Oh my God, OP is a proper a-hole. He needs to think about this from his daughter's perspective for just 1 minute. In her eyes, OP abandoned her dying mother, and then less than 2 years later, married a woman that's pretty much OP's daughter's age. When her friends write something kind about her dead mom and she thanks them for the comment, OP snoops and tells her to apologize for what her friend said. Oh, and OP thinks he needs to prioritize his new wife's well-being over that of his own daughter. That's just so sad. I feel sorry for OP's daughter. Basically, I lived with my mom, stepdad, and stepsister, who is the same age as me. This meant that she and I were going through the college application process together last year. I'm not going to lie, I'm not a fan of my stepsister. We're polar opposites. She's very privileged and likes to flaunt it. She's never cared about school or tried hard at all, always wanting to bank on her parents when she needed it. For example, she failed her SAT 3 times, scored around 1,000 to 1,100. So her parents paid her private school to hire in a special proctor that was much more lenient and allowed her to take the test in a room by herself. It was very sketchy to say the least. Although we lived together, she attended different high schools. Both of us had one dream school, Stanford. I have my own reasons for loving Stanford, but her main reason was because both her parents went there. The time comes to apply, and we both do. Ultimately, she gets rejected, despite double legacy, and I get in. Later that evening, my mom and I wanted to have a celebratory dinner with the family, but my stepdad and stepsister both declined to join. I did not see my stepsister at all that night. The next day, I see her during breakfast, and she's clearly still very upset. I didn't know what to say at all since it was so awkward. She ended up breaking the silence and muttered a very bitter, "Congratulations." I said thank you and appreciated it. That afternoon, however, I was in my room with my door open, and she was in the living room talking with her best friend. I knew she knew that I could hear her. She was very loudly complaining to her friend about not getting in and how that she didn't know why I got in, but she didn't. She also ranted about how she had a better application than I did and worked harder on it, but she still didn't get in. She finally finished her rant with, she didn't deserve to get in. Honestly, I was furious. So after she got off the phone, I confronted her about it, and she didn't even bother denying what she said. I told her the hard truth. She didn't have the grades or the extracurriculars. Her essays were lackluster. She made me read them and edit them for her. I told her she can't possibly think that a school like Stanford, who had around a 2% acceptance rate this year, would accept someone below average like her. Well, stuff blew up after that. She went crying to her parents, and I got yelled at for being rude and selfish. Our relationship was non-existent after that. Currently, our family is planning our Christmas trip to France. My stepfather is paying this year, and he called me last night and told me it might be best if I don't come with them, since my stepsister was still hurt by what I said, and it might cause problems if I were there. What the duck? I get that he's paying, but that's incredibly petty. I still don't think I was the a-hole. I told my mom about what happened, and she didn't even know that he had asked me that. To be honest, I think he wanted me to agree, and then he would tell my mom that I told him I didn't want to go or something. She told me if that's the case, she will not be going on the trip as well, and that we could just go on one together. OP is not an a-hole. So she gets into Stanford. Her stepsister doesn't. And as a punishment for doing well, OP doesn't get to go on the family vacation. Might I suggest, if OP's stepsister says anything petty about OP not going to France, her response should be, "This is true. I might not be going to France, but I do go to Stanford," with a nice smile. My father has always been, and still is, a hard ass, constantly pushing me to be better and try harder. He was always the one making sure I studied enough for my exams and didn't get too distracted with partying or anything. He even refused to sign the application and other forms I needed him to sign for me to study abroad, because it had been a lifelong dream of mine. He said it was a distraction and I needed to focus on graduating. So finally, after 5 years of hard work, I finally was graduating with 2 degrees, both a Bachelor's of Science and a Bachelor's of Arts. I was so excited to finally be done with school for at least a little bit. The day of graduation came, and I was lucky to have my mom, stepdad, aunt, little sister, dad, and stepmom come to support me. I went to a pretty big school, so commencement takes 2 to 3 hours and takes place outside in the football stadium. Halfway through the ceremony, during the speeches, before I walked to get my diplomas, I get a text from my dad saying that he, my stepmom, and my little sister, 20 at the time, left the ceremony because they were cold on a 70-degree day. I am immediately crushed and borderline crying because I worked my butt off for 5 years and they couldn't sit in a stadium for 3 hours to see me get my diplomas. I tried to forget about it to get through the ceremony, and my mom, stepdad, and aunt were still there to cheer me on. I walked, got my degree, took pictures with my friends, etc. When I walked out of the stadium to meet up with my family, I was greeted by my sobbing mother saying she can't believe my dad would walk out in such an important day for me and didn't even stick around to see me after. I have to admit, I was really hurt that he left on one of the proudest days of my life so far, and still am hurt that he felt it was okay to leave in the middle of my graduation ceremony. My dad says that since he took me out to a nice dinner the night before my graduation, that was all the celebration that was necessary, and that I didn't need to make 2 days of it. He apologized only after I got upset with him, and he said that he was sorry and didn't realize it was such a big deal. The real kicker for me is after they left the ceremony, they drove to my stepbrother's apartment. He lives in the same city as where I went to school, and took him out to lunch at his favorite restaurant while my graduation ceremony was still going on. I know it's just a symbolic ceremony, but to me it symbolized all the blood, sweat, and tears I put into my degree over 5 years and was very important to me. So, am I the a-hole for still being hurt that my dad left during my graduation ceremony and still not totally forgiving him for it? OP is not an a-hole. That was incredibly dismissive of him. And it was manipulative to say OP was making 2 days of it, as though OP was being selfish. There's a good chance OP's father isn't going to change at this point. Few people seem to be able to. OP should celebrate the people she has and should not blame herself if she has to emotionally pull away from her father. Protecting her own mental stability might start with not relying on him for emotional support. My mom and stepdad came crying to me, 25 female, last night that their checking account has been drained by my little sister, 12 female. She saved their debit card into her iPad and purchased over $3,000 worth of in-app purchases in toys, clothes. They are having a tough time financially right now, and this is a huge blow to them. They are also in some major medical debt. My mom asked if I could set up a GoFundMe page and post it to my Facebook so family can donate to help them out, in lieu of any Christmas presents this year from them and my sister. I made it clear that I will not be doing that, and in fact, promptly made a Facebook post to warn all our friends and family to not give my parents a dime. Why? This is the 4th time my sister has done this. When she was 9, she used my stepdad's credit card and maxed it out for some shopping animal game. They locked away the family computers but gave her an iPad for Christmas only 3 months later. Immediately used my brother's, 27 male, Apple ID and the card he had saved to buy some more Apple crap, totaling $300. iPad wasn't taken away, but they removed all internet access. A year later, when she was 10, she was given back internet access and stole my aunt's card information, saved it, and did it again. Bought more toys and other things that couldn't be returned, like movies on Vudu, and signed up for Netflix and Hulu with it. iPad was taken away. She did some chores and batted her eyelashes and was forgiven and given back the iPad after 6 weeks. I made the post after our phone call, and my mom sobbed on the phone to me after she saw it later on to please take the post down and tell everyone I was exaggerating, and to donate to help them. They are in a very bad way, I get that, but it's no one's fault but their own. My brother and boyfriend agree with me, but think I shouldn't have made the post on Facebook, and are mad that I've prevented them from getting money from any relatives to help them out. No one is talking to me right now, and apparently they are already over 2 months behind on their mortgage and 1 car payment. My brother says it's not my job to give tough love to our mother. We should be supporting them. I can't get past how stupid they have been with my sister. So, am I the a-hole for telling everyone the whole story and preventing them from getting any help? I wouldn't have been posting on social media, but I think OP is not an a-hole. I could see this happening once. You live and learn as a parent, but 4 times is a disturbing pattern. OP did the right thing by warning the family, because if this behavior hasn't been stopped by now, it won't be anytime soon. Also, if sister so wishes with the internet, she can make the GoFundMe post for them. I also wouldn't let her within a mile of anywhere I may have personal and/or financial information. The divorce was final 3 years ago. Obviously, it is horrible he cheated. They have 2 kids, my nieces, 12 and 14. They are both 38. I am female, 36. So, my sister is obsessed with the fact that her ex, Tom, left her for another woman about 4 years ago. She goes on some online forum and complains every time I talk to her about cheaters and shares war stories she sees on there. She refers to his new wife as wifestress and refuses to be in her presence. My nieces are being affected by this. My niece, 14, was very sad yesterday at her graduation from cheer camp get-together. I was worried and pulled her aside and asked her why she was so mad. She said she really wanted Tom and her stepmother at the little ceremony, but her mother threw a fit and they stayed away. She started crying and was saying she loved her dad and hated hearing everything bad about him every day. My sister walked in and must have been listening and started going on about how he left them and that he deserved to miss things. I told her to knock it off, stop being so bitter, and get off the online crap and into counseling. She started crying, and then my mother comes in. Once she got the idea of what was going on, she told 14 to go wash her face and agreed that Sis should get help. Sis threw us all out and is now telling all of Facebook we condone cheating and actually warned my husband to watch me. Sister's best friend called and scolded me about this. I don't think I was wrong, but am I the a-hole? OP is not an a-hole, and that's called parental alienation. And if she's still struggling this badly, the kids might be better off with dad while she gets help, because she's really not okay. OP's sister is making her daughter the victim of her ex-husband's infidelity. When parents divorce, they need to co-parent. Do what is best for the child ahead of what they feel is best for themselves. Ex-spouses should not be denied access to the events in the life of their child just because their ex is angry of what they did.